A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to speak to you all today. The topic that has been, you can say, assigned to me because I had actually said I could speak on anything that you want. That's just the way I have developed my skills over the years. Was sex. Why is it such a big taboo and controversy? The word itself makes a lot of people either excited or cringe. And when we think about it, if it wasn't for sex, you and I would not be at this event today. Does everyone agree with that? So when we think about it, sex has been present around us from time immemorial. I would even go to the extent of saying that sex is nature itself. When we think of sex, we are often thinking only of an act. But sex is much more than that. Way more than that is what I would say. In every fiber, every element, every cell in your body, if it is studied down to the core, you will realize that without sex, life is not possible. And today, in the next few minutes, what I will do is I will change your concept of what you think sex has been, because that has been programmed into your mind, just like it was in mine. My journey in unraveling the secret of sex began when I was just 6 years old, and I asked my mother, where did I come from? How was I born? And in a household where speaking about sex was a taboo, in a very difficult way, she tried her best to explain my conception and my birth, which was better than many parents who had told their kids that we brought you from the hospital. Like there was a baby store there that you went and bought, and this was the best you could buy. So I realized that the topic was evasive. People didn't want to talk about it. It made them uncomfortable. And as I grew up and I saw the different implications of what sex brought to people's lives, whether it was from young teenagers and self-pleasuring and all the guilt and the shame that went with it, to growing up as adults and having relationships after relationships, I realized that there was something wrong here, that we were missing the mark on something, where something as natural, something as pure as sex could be considered to be a taboo or a controversy. When I got into medical school and I started looking at this more in depth from what I would call the medical standpoint, it turned out that people had done research to break love down into the different emotions, into the different sensations, into the different feelings of lust, attraction, attachment. But interestingly, in this whole picture of when they looked at these different emotions, they could not place love in there. And as you can see, the different hormones that are involved in this, when these same hormones of dopamine and oxytocin being the primary ones, where dopamine is a reward system, the same reward system that is triggered by drugs, by alcohol, and by food, and oxytocin, which gives you bonding right from a baby being born to a mother and she breastfeeding her, to the bonding that may be between friends and family. These same hormones, when they went into excesses, became diseases. Drug addiction being one very common example. And I realized that we have become a society of excesses, where when we are given something, we do not stop at what we receive from it. We tend to want more and more. Much like when Adam and Eve were told, don't eat the forbidden apple, the forbidden fruit, they still ate it. You give us fast food, we become a society of obesity, hypertension, and diabetes. You give us cell phones, we become selfie addicts and internet addicts. And in this same way, when sex, the word sex, I'm going to change later, but right now I'm using the word sex, is given to us or hidden from us or kept from us, we tend to have more curiosity and interest in it and want to do it more and more. And that leads to many, many problems. And what we realize, and this is where I want you to start thinking differently, that sex is not really about intercourse. It's not about physical relations. It's not about what is called sambhog. Sex is more than that. As I said, sex is in every element of nature. People always think of sex as a male and a female coming together. They forget that it really symbolizes creation, production, something new. And the reality still remains that sex is not a problem, it's the solution. The problem is sexuality. And that is what you really need to differentiate between. Just to give you an idea, if you think of sex as something in which there is creation, I tell you that your past was sex, your present is sex, and your future is also sex. Why, you would ask? Because in your past, you came from a womb. Now think of the same womb in your present as your present God-given divine moment. In this very moment, you instill a thought, you instill an imagination, you instill a vision into that womb of that divine moment you're in this present. And guess what? In the future, you have created your reality. That to me is sex. A seed growing into a plant, growing into a flower, fruit, a seed again is sex. The birds, the bees, everything is sex. Nature is sex. The problem is we have been told that sex is sexuality. Sexuality is a whole different topic. Sexuality is something that you can get excessively into. You can even become addicted to it. And as you can see, in today's day and age, sexuality sells everything. Do you really think that in order to buy the best detergent, you need an attractive looking lady selling it? Do you really think that with cigarettes, alcohol, cars, everywhere, you are given a sexual image to stimulate that same area of your mind, that same dopamine release mechanism that makes you feel like you're getting some reward? And soon there is a myth created which makes you attracted to it. And the more you get attracted to it, the more you go deeper into it. And the more you get deeper into it, and the more your curiosity rises. So the problem has never been sex, which is pure, it's clean, it's nature, it's life. But when this happens, and when this kind of imagery, through the songs you hear, through the movies you watch, through the sites you visit on the internet, through the books you read, the romantic novels you read, you're given an idea of sex, not as sex, but as sexuality. There is a difference between Kam and Kamukta. Kam is a desire, can be a desire for a better future, a better life. It's an integral part of Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha. We have always known that. And the balance of that, the harmony of that, is what is totally missing in today's day and age. And hence, as a result, people go to the extent of becoming sex addicts. I have seen friends turn into sex addicts. I've seen patients, many of them, people coming for counseling to us. It does nothing different than a drug that keeps on giving a high. And if you miss out on that high, you don't feel good. And after you have had that high multiple times, there is shame, self-loathing, guilt, and even depression, and much worse that occurs. So you realize that where the mind is getting warped, the mind is getting cheated by what you are seeing. So all your senses, your eyes, your ears, even the food we eat have always been known to be aphrodisiac foods. Because these can influence the thoughts, the chemicals in your body, the emotions. And that's what people believe is the problem. And hence, as a result of that, there were societal norms, religious traditions, doctrines, dogmas that were created that make you believe that sex is bad. Don't do it. Stay away from it. At one extreme is abstinence, which is suppression. At the other extreme, you have expression and sometimes overexpression. multiple partners, partner after partner, relationship after relationship, all of these things. And when this started happening, those who were running society felt that there needed to be rules to control this. They were controlling sexuality. Sex never needed to be controlled. Nature was at peace and in happiness with all the sex it had in it, even before we had internet and porn, which, by the way, is a $97 billion industry. And the global sexual wellness industry is about $39 billion. Can you imagine that much time, energy, money spent after something that's so simple? But the reality still remains that this overindulgence into sexuality is really the issue. And this suppression and expression are two extremes of it. And there has to be a balance, a harmony. And when I saw this time and again with friends, family members, patients that I was treating, patients that I was counseling through all the different skills that I picked up, because I realized very early in my career that modern medical science was an incomplete science, because it said you have to have sex at least twice a month or 3 times a week. It had numbers like that, and it improves your reduces your heart rate, improves your blood pressure, prevents depression, improves your circulation. It gave all these reasons and kept telling you you're being programmed, that if you don't do it, you're missing out on something. The problem is not sex. The problem is the programming that's going into you that makes you misaligned with what it really is supposed to be. Sex itself is pure, it's beautiful, it's everywhere around you. It's not just in the loins and the groins, which is what you're made to believe. And if you keep believing that, sexually transmitted diseases and many other problems come up, which then require even more what I would call regulation and control. There's sex education, which was missing before, which is done. Has that really reduced the degree of sexuality in the society? It may have reduced the sexually transmitted diseases, for sure. It may have reduced some of the other complications like unwanted pregnancies, but it has not reduced the sexuality of society. So that should tell you that our education system is somewhere flawed in trying to deal with sex very clearly and in a very obvious way, because we're not thinking right. So to me, as I would like you to take this thought with you, sex is not the problem, it's actually the solution. When you start living sex in your life, I don't mean intercourse of physical relations. I mean the beauty of Mother Nature, Lord, God, life. You will realize that whether physical sex is there or not, it does not matter, because that's pure love we are talking about. And pure love is what is missing amongst us. People have found that loneliness, lack of attractiveness, lack of self-love, lack of many things is what often drives people into sexuality and hypersexuality. And only if a person would realize the importance of self-realization, introspection, the importance of realizing who they are, what their purpose in life is, what have they been born for. It's an evolution that we as humans have the gift. A dog or a cat cannot think that way, though they also reproduce. We have taken procreation to recreation, but we haven't taken procreation to procreation at the mind level, because we are still stuck at what I would say are the lower chakras or energy centers in our body. So it's very important for everyone sitting here today, because if you see sex as a problem or there is a dis-ease in the body, recognize that that has been created and put into you. There is really a reason and a purpose to look at why that is happening and what the reason is, and to actually delve into it and find answers like I had done very early in my life and have been for the last 20 plus years. And it really requires what I call the process of unlearning. You first have to unlearn what you've been programmed with, all this sexuality through music, videos, internet, books, etc., and come back to recognizing that sex is nature. Imagine if you told a fish that water is bad for you. Would that fish survive? No. In the same way, if someone told you sex is bad for you, that's a lie. Sex is life. If you deny sex, you deny life. You cannot deny life if you want to be happy and healthy. And so I tell people, when you're looking at your own lives, when you're looking at what you're doing in your life, try to rise up from the lower centers, which have been energy centers, as we have 7 of them in our body. And this knowledge made me a way better physician, healer than I ever was, because I came to realize what people do in their lives on an energy level, not on the physical level. That's just a manifestation of the mind and the spirit. And as you go, as you can see from the root chakra, where there is guilt and pleasure, shame and grief at the lower centers, as you go higher, you start experiencing truth, insight, cosmic energy, and true love. And only being in the presence of people who have experienced and been on this path was I truly able to realize and experience it in my own life. So there are some things in life for which we do have to extend our hand and ask for help and guidance, because there are people who have walked this path before you who can actually help you experience what true love, what true compassion, what true giving, and what living from the higher heart centers and upper really mean for you. That too, as I told you, through your creativity, is sex. Sex to me is not a physical act anymore. So I always tell people who come to me, couples come to us for counseling too before marriage, and I tell them, stop falling in love, start rising in love. Where sex is required for rebirthing and procreation, it is there. Don't overindulge, don't get lost in it, don't think that you're not having enough of it because someone said so. Don't think that you're missing out on the next best thing after the wheel was invented, because that's not true. This is all being told to you. So the goal for you is to connect with individuals who are, if I may say, sitting up here. As you can see, the resolves Rubik cube towards which a person with a very confused and overloaded mind is really moving up to. And when they realize that those thoughts, negative thoughts, positive thoughts, all those thoughts, which was, as described before, cluttered in the mind, when all that gets into a resolution state, you come to a peace, harmony, love, and there sex is beautiful and natural. Thank you very much.